Hey guys, so I went to Harbor Freight today and I bought this corded soldering station. Schneider is the name brand. I think that half the name brands at Harbor Freight are made up. Been looking for one of these for a while. I have this old one and I repaired it, but I'm not real happy with it now. So I saw this, it's 40 bucks. I thought that was a little on the high side, but then I went and looked at what Weller's cost, and this is actually pretty cheap. Part number 57364. The temperature range is 392 degrees Fahrenheit to 896 degrees Fahrenheit. So I wanted to give it a try. It's 40 bucks with a 10% off. It's a new product. You tend to pay a little bit more for them while they're still new. For use with audio equipment, crafts, small appliances, and home electronics. So I'm going to have to try it out and see if it works for what I want. If it's too hot, it can damage your equipment. Okay, so ever-present manual. And it does have an exploded view diagram. It looks like it has a transformer instead of a switching power supply. That's okay. I have concerns buying a solder station without knowing what type of ends it uses, because you need different types of ends, plus you need replacement ends. So I did a little research on this before I bought it. It says it comes with 3 tips. Well, hopefully it has one on it. So it has 3 tips. And it's odd they put a plastic cover to protect this, because as soon as you turn it on, that's going to melt. So that's not very effective. So the tips will be the first thing I want to talk about. You take this cover off. You don't want to do that when it's hot unless you use a pair of pliers. And as you can see, this is the heat element, and these tips go down over it. And then this holds it in place. They use this retaining sleeve because they don't want to put threads on this or have something tightening. So it's actually a kind of efficient thing. You have cheap tips, and then you can replace this if you need to. And why I was concerned about the tips is, where am I going to get replacement tips? Because 3 tips aren't going to last me a long, long time. Well, it just so happens that these use a type of tip called a 900M. If you search 900M on Amazon or AliExpress, you'll find a ton of these. And these actually are all basically the same tip. This one might be longer, but it's still the same shape. And it's like a general purpose soldering. And one of the reasons I was so concerned about the tip is I have a lot of tips. I have these really small ones for doing surface mounts. And this is the most common, which is what that comes with. And then there's a variety of things here. As you can see, the tips age, so you'll be replacing them eventually. Anyway, I got plenty of spares. If you order these off Amazon, you get 6 for $8. If you order them off AliExpress, you get 5 for about $3. This iron has the same retaining clip. As you can see, it does age. I'll eventually need another one of these, but I can actually order a replacement iron and just use this for about the same price as just getting this. And you know why Harbor Freight gives you a manual? It's not for the exploded view diagram. It's for the 4, 5, 6 pages of things you shouldn't do. This one has a separate stand and a separate heating unit with a detachable iron. So this is maybe the best combination you can get. Okay, so Schneider. I've never heard of Schneider before. I don't know if it's an independent brand or not. It seems well made. One of the things that happens to me over time is this gets loose between the handle and this, but that seems pretty solid right now. I'll have to use this for a year. Let you know the results. Let's see if these other tips will fit on here. They're just a tiny bit looser, but they are 900M tips. They go on just fine. Okay, so it comes with a detachable iron, and you just plug this in. It's keyed right here, and the key is at the bottom. and you tighten that up. To any ham radio operator, that should be very familiar. That's how a lot of mics work. So I would mount it like this, set it to what I wanted it, and use it. And this seems pretty heavy, which is actually good. It actually has a metal plate there to make it heavier. Seems actually okay. I have some concerns about this being plastic, but in reality, if this is custom made to fit in there, I shouldn't have a problem. Now it comes with a sponge, and you can buy replacement sponges pretty easy. You can actually maybe make your own. The idea is to put that there, wet it, and then when you get oxidization on your tip, you wipe the oxidation off. I don't like that. An alternative is something like this. These are solder sponges. Those aren't going to fit very good in here. As you can see, these have been in my old one for quite a while. And you can put them there. And these, you don't have to worry about keeping wet, and you just dip the iron into the sponge, and it cleans it off. Now the downside of that is if you want to get rid of some excess solder and you do that, it might actually scrape the tinning off of this. And these are a couple of dollars. I like them much better than this. These have been in service for years and years and years. Work just fine. I like these just a little better. Start it up. Now, it has a calibrate right here, so you can measure this. If it's not 392, you can calibrate it, get adjusted a little. Keep that tinned, it'll last a lot longer. Now if you there we go. Now the question is, how do I know how hot it is? Well, I don't. Okay, I do know that 392, 400 should melt this solder without any problems. So I can take this and I can turn it up. As I turn it up, according to this thing, it's about 425. There's 400. But I know that should be melting that a lot faster at 400 than it actually is. I've got to be careful here because I don't want to get the heating element against the stand. See, that's not hot enough to solder. So let's go to 450. Supposedly it's at that. Okay, that's still a little slow. Just a little. Let's find out which way you have to turn this to adjust it. Okay, so there's not a lot of adjustment in this, but you can see that I got it to come on where it was previously off. So I put this in and I rotate it to the left. I can make the light go out. That means I'm turning the temperature down. So if I do this, I'm turning it up to the right. So I've got it turned up all the way. And that quickly went to flashing. Okay, so that is probably about how I would like it. Let's go to 400. So I had to calibrate that and turn it to the right to raise the temperature to match the dial. I think that's about 400. I use this almost 1 millimeter solder to tin that. I don't solder with this very often. This is old rosin core solder from Radio Shack. If you can imagine, I had this for a long time. The solder I use the most is this Radio Shack rosin core solder. I don't know how much this is. It might be a half pound. It's half of the diameter of the almost 1 millimeter. This is what I use most of the time when I'm working on electronics. And that's coming off really nice. That's about what I want. And I know from experience that's what I want. Most of the time I use this, it's going to be down. Now that's when I'm putting stuff together. If I'm doing rework, I actually might want that to be a little hotter. So maybe I would go up higher. Or if I'm soldering cables, I'd want to go higher. The actual iron takes 900M tip. Based on that, this is about what a soldering iron is going to look like. That takes 900M tips. Very comfortable in your hand. I think I have a lot of fine motor control with this type of an iron. You can buy attachments to do wood burning with this, but I'll be honest with you, this is very long. A wood burner typically has less distance from your hand to what you're working on. This becomes a little awkward. The shorter is better. But they do sell them just like this that has an end for wood burning. I was a little concerned when I saw this holder was hard plastic. Probably ABS, but it has a weight in it to make it stay. So as you can see, it actually works pretty good. I have no doubt that over time I'm going to put a tip against these sides and burn them. I think it'll take a long time for that to cause a problem. I would highly advise you to get several spares and buy the tips that make sense for what you're doing. Typically 900Ms have a dash letter, dash number, or just a dash letter. And these are, the tips that come with it appear to be good quality. As long as you keep them tinned with solder, a tip will last a long time. And the more fine control you have of the temperature, the better that's going to work. Whether you buy this kit from a US supplier or direct from China, it's the same kit. Bunch of LEDs. They use some transistors to turn these on and off, and they do it in a circle. Putting together a kit is a whole nother video. The component in, bend this over, hold it in place. This is, of course, a Harbor Freight hobby vise. So how you know you've got it in the right temperature? Thing's running low, a lot low. You take your soldering iron and you put against the component and the pad, and you put this solder against the component, and you melt that, and there you go. So you don't want to put it on the iron, you want to heat the pad and the component, and then let the solder against the component melt the solder. It only takes a second. The faster you get on that on, the faster you let up, the better off you want to be. Okay, so it's pretty solid. Have good connections. I do verify the connections. I just did one, but I would do all of these and I would verify them with this. I'd verify them with this magnifying glass, which is Harbor Freight, of course. Looks good. Now to get the flow at the speed I wanted, I had to set it to 500. You saw after each component, I cleaned the tip. There's some pretty good soldering tutorials online. I advise you to go and look at those. I just soldered one piece to show you how it works and how to tell what temperature it is. There's soldering tutorials on YouTube. It's a little bit out of the scope, but I wanted to show that that worked how I wanted to and how it went together. And this, to me, this seems like a nice soldering iron. I like that this bulky base can be put off to the side a little, and then I can have this to work with. So I have more room to work on my Schneider soldering iron. There's no model number on this other than the Harbor Freight part number. 57364. And it says it's 50 watts. 50 watts should be plenty for this. Okay, so soldering iron, Schneider. It's a new thing of Harbor Freight. The manual has a copyright date of 2020, but I just saw it advertised recently and went and picked it up. 10% off. Shelf price is $40. So if you like the videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.